Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 20 of my Orc Shaman level 1 through 60 playthrough, which is a cool number to get to. We are now 20 episodes into this series. But today, I want to do another fun and interesting episode where this is going to be very similar to last week, where if you remember what we did last week, we explored Karazhan, which is a piece of content in World of Warcraft that is relevant in vanilla, and is a big thing in future expansions. And today I want to go ahead and look at some more raids, but specifically I want to look at some vanilla raids today, where I want to look at the first and the last raid in vanilla, where the first raid is kind of like subjective, where there are two raids that release at the same time, but in my mind I kind of consider this one the first one because it's like a single boss, and that is Onyxia's Lair. And then I want to explore the final raid, which is Naxxramas. But before we do that, I want to explore a very interesting part of World of Warcraft lore, and before we do that, I want to give a little bit of an announcement for people who are following my Let's Play series, and for people who play Season of Discovery or are just interested in World of Warcraft in general. Phase 4 of the Season of Discovery has been announced. Last week I talked about how this upcoming phase hasn't been announced yet, and we don't really know when it's going to be coming out. Well, this week things are a little bit different because we know when phase 4 is releasing, and we know a ton of stuff that is going to be releasing in phase 4. Where phase 4 is releasing on July 11th, which is just a couple of weeks away from when I'm recording this. And like I said, there is a ton of stuff coming with phase 4, which I think I'll save to talk about later when we are exploring a new zone and we can talk about all the changes with phase 4 in World of Warcraft Season of Discovery. But of course, I am currently flying on a Wyvern, and I am close to my destination because I am flying to Dustwallow Marsh, where this is where Onyxia's Lair is located here in the southeastern corner of the map. But I want to go to the northeastern corner of the map, which is a very interesting area. And what I'm about to talk about might not make a ton of sense for people who have been exclusively watching this Let's Play series, so I'll do my best to explain it. But it should make a lot of sense for people who watched my Human Mage Let's Play series, because we talked a lot about the story of the Defias Brotherhood, where that is basically like the main storyline going from Elven Forest into Westfall, and we see some more stuff going on in like Duskwood, and we see some stuff going on here in Dustwallow Marsh, where there is a very cool quest chain that I did in that Let's Play series called The Missing Diplomat, where we learn that the Defias kidnapped a diplomat from Stormwind who was on their way to Theramore Isle to basically like negotiate and talk with Lady Jaina Proudmoore. And through that quest chain, we basically deal with like the person who's responsible, the traitor who is responsible for that kidnapping, and we learn some things where the diplomat that was captured is Keen Varian Rin, the High King of the Alliance, the leader of Stormwind, the King of Humanity, was captured by the Defias. And he was captured by the Defias by the orders of Lady Onyxia, who was disguised as a noblewoman in Stormwind. And then in a later quest chain, which I also featured a little bit of, I didn't do the full quest chain, but I featured kind of like the in-game cinematic that's not like a full cut cinematic, where Onyxia is unmasked and you kind of learn that she's evil, and then she flies back to her lair here in Dustwallow Marsh. But located in Dustwallow Marsh is actually Keen Varian Rin that we can find, and I'm going to go ahead and try to reach him. Where this is a very interesting area that we will learn about in just a moment. But the story of Keen Varian Rin from like vanilla to where he's fully reintroduced into the game in the Lich King expansion is kind of interesting because there's not really anything going on. We have the Missing Diplomat quest chain, and then we have the unmasking of Onyxia and fighting Onyxia and whatnot in vanilla World of Warcraft, where Varian is located at this place we are heading to, but you don't really do too much with him. There's not a lot of story going on. He doesn't do too many things, but there is a book that you can read about basically what's happened with Varian, and that adds like a ton of lore and story, and you meet a lot of like other people and whatnot. And basically with Lich King, he's suddenly back in the game because of the events of the book, where there are a few books surrounding him that add a lot of character to his personality and whatnot. But in vanilla World of Warcraft, he is located at an area called Alcaz Island, which is this island right here in the northeastern corner of Dustwallow Marsh. And I was thinking about coming to this place on my human mage character, but I thought now would be a good time because I want to go fight Onyxia and kind of experience that raid, and then we'll also go do Naxxramas as well. But we can see over there is Alcaz Island, and I mentioned earlier that this is a very interesting area. And I genuinely mean that, where the lore and like story going on here is actually kind of confusing, where basically the Defias kidnapped Varian at Onyxia's behest, and then he was taken here, where basically Onyxia has like Naga and like some other creatures working together. There's like some black dragons and whatnot, like Onyxia on this island, and I need to find, where is it? Water walking right there. Hopefully I can run on my dire wolf. Oh, no, I cannot. Do that. Can I do Ghost Wolf? No, I cannot. So just running it is. But this is a level 60 elite area where there is a big like undead gnome known as Dr. Weevil, I believe, who lives on this island. Or I guess he is undead nowadays, but he's living on this island as an alive gnome, and you can like kill him, and then there's like a bunch of other stuff going on in this island. And then this island has played a part in like a few different parts of World of Warcraft, in like Legion and Mr. Pandaria and whatnot, where it's just like a really interesting area. And you can see there are a ton of Hydras, and this is a level 60 elite area, so I think I'm probably going to die like 40 times as I do this, but I'm just going to do my best to death run into this area where I'm dead. Maybe I should use one of my reincarnations just to get a little extra time here. And resisted that. Okay, so there's my first two deaths, and I have to run all the way back from here. So this might take quite some time. But basically, we need to get into the island, and then I need to get into a building just so we can see Varian. And I think I may have just embarrassed myself, which is really, really awkward. But I don't think King Varian Rin is here anymore, where apparently he was removed in patch 1.9, which I thought he was always here in vanilla. So I guess I just gave a bunch of story about King Varian and basically what's going on here, and we had a look at the island. So maybe I'll just run around it really quickly and like just double check, and then we can probably see if he is there or not. Where we are in the season of discovery, where he was removed in the Alcaz patch, and I don't think that's technically happened, but I think like all the patches are out, so I'm not entirely sure. So we are back here on the island, and let's just go ahead and run around this in ghost form really quickly, where we can see it kind of looks like an internment island that they have just for King Varian Rin, where we have some guard towers, and I guess we can't really see any of the enemies while we are in ghost form, so let's just run through here really quickly, where there are a variety of different buildings that look like the internment camp buildings, where we have one over here. We can run into here, and we can see it's just broken down a little bit with some damaged beds, and we can see that there are some pits there. And then we have this big building here where when Dr. Weevil was added to the game, he resides in this building. And this looks like some of the big buildings that we went into in Tenaris and whatnot. And then we also have this building right here, which is cool. But right over here, where this is a very interesting area, we can go down here and through here, and we can see that portcullis there and some torch devices as well. And I believe through this portcullis, or maybe over there, or we can just run it through the portcullis as a ghost. That's actually really cool. But I believe in here is where Varian used to live. On this area shares a model with an area in the Burning Crusade where Akama resides. So Varian might actually be in this one. So he's in one of these two, except not anymore with patch 1.9 releasing in the original vanilla World of Warcraft. And then we can see some story of Varian Rin taking part in the future of the game up until Lich King, where he's implemented into the game, and we see a ton of story related to Varian Rin all the way until his death in the Legion expansion. But that is all that I wanted to explore of Alcaz Island, and I could like death run down there, but I'd probably die like 20 times, and I don't think I want to spend like 2 hours doing that. So I'm going to go ahead and swap over to the same character that I did Karazhan on earlier, and we can go ahead and explore a couple of the raids of vanilla World of Warcraft. but we can leave Alcaz Island there, where we are now in the modern version of World of Warcraft, where Alcaz Island has been updated, as well as Kalimdor. And we can see with like Thermal Isle right here, it is very much updated with some story that happened with the Cataclysm and Mist of Pandaria. But let's go ahead and head over this way, because I want to head over to this area right here, Onyxia's Lair, which this area alongside Molten Core are the first two raids in World of Warcraft, which I think I'll take a look at Molten Core in a future stream probably. And I want to look at Onyxia's Lair here, where the entrance is really cool, because we can see that there are a ton of black dragons all around here, and we can see that there are like some burned forest and trees and like more black dragons, and this really cool looking entrance. Where a really interesting thing about both Naxxramas and Onyxia's Lair, and kind of related to Alcaz Island, is that these are two raids that were updated in the Wrath Lich King expansion and became Wrath of Lich King raids, which is the same expansion that Varian was added into the game in Wrath Lich King after his initial appearance in vanilla World of Warcraft. But let's go ahead, run through the entrance, and we can enter Onyxia's Lair, which is probably one of the most popular and well-known raids in all of World of Warcraft. And it is a very short raid, which we can see on the map here. There's not too much going on here, and we can just run straight to the boss, who is pretty close to the entrance and is the only boss in this raid. So this is kind of just like one of your classic like cave layers of a dragon, where you like go into like the lair and you slay the dragon, and there's not too much else going on. So it hits a very cool vibe and a very cool theme, and we can see that there are some guards around here that we can go ahead and just slay very quickly. But as we turn this corner up here, we will see a very cool shot of Onyxia, a very iconic shot with Onyxia just laying right there in the center. And we can see that there are a ton of dragon whelps like all around this area, which play a mechanic in this fight, because if you run into the eggs, then the eggs will like crack and whelps will come out. And there's a very famous World of Warcraft video that is a meme of that. And we have Onyxia here, of course, who we are probably going to like 3-shot or something. So let's go ahead and just attack her. And she says, "How fortuitous. Usually I must leave my lair in order to feed." And she says, "This meaningless exertion bores me. I'll incinerate you from the above," where she will fly up into the air and will basically breathe fire down on you, and you can kill her or get her down to 1% health, where there are a ton of whelps coming this way. So let's go ahead and deal with them really quickly. And then I think Onyxia has to phase in order for us to successfully kill her. She says, "It seems you'll need another lesson, mortals," where I think we can kill her there, and we have defeated Onyxia, the first big boss of World of Warcraft. And this is so cool. We can go ahead and loot that, where we get some Wrath Lich King loot. And that is that. Really cool looking helmet. But Onyxia, a really cool boss, who's probably one of the most famous and well-known bosses in World of Warcraft. And this was Onyxia's Lair, very quick raid. But now I want to go ahead and do Naxxramas, which to do that we actually have to go to Northrend, because Naxxramas was originally located in the Eastern Plaguelands, and it serves as the final raid of vanilla World of Warcraft, where the next raid tier after Naxxramas is in the Burning Crusade, where that is the first expansion for World of Warcraft. So Naxxramas is it. And of course I kind of talked about how Karazhan might have been the next raid in vanilla, but then that got moved over to the Burning Crusade. But with the Wrath Lich King expansion, we saw Onyxia's Lair kind of revamped, and you could do it in that expansion to get level 80 loot for that expansion. But Naxxramas, same thing, where it was revamped to level 80, but while Onyxia's Lair stayed where it was located there in Dustwall Marsh and Kalimdor, Naxxramas was moved from the Eastern Plaguelands to Northrend, where basically you could just like run around Northrend and do all your things, and then you could see Naxxramas around you. And there are some stories related to Naxxramas that are located here in Northrend that you basically deal with, mostly in Dragonblight, which is where I'm heading right now. Where when we compare the vanilla version of Naxxramas and the Lich King version of Naxxramas, they are pretty similar. Of course, one is a level 60 raid and one is a level 80 raid, and there is different balancing, where the original Naxxramas I think is technically a bit harder than how it is at Lich King at like that current content phase. But for the most part, it's kind of like the same content going on, where it's like the same raids and like the same bosses, which a lot of people actually didn't really like that, because you spend a lot of time doing Naxxramas in vanilla, and then you end up spending a lot of time doing Naxxramas and the Lich King. And when we look at the story differences between Naxxramas in the Lich King expansion and in the original vanilla, there's not too many differences, where of course you like defeat all the bosses and you kill Kel'Thuzad, and they're undead, so they just get resurrected again, kind of like a basic simple idea. But in the original vanilla, you bring the phylactery of Kel'Thuzad to Light's Hope Chapel, and you hand it to someone in Light's Hope Chapel who ends up being a traitor, a minion of the Scourge, and he takes it and retreats to Northrend to give it to Arthas, where Arthas is able to resurrect Kel'Thuzad once again, where she did that during the original Warcraft 3. Where then that Argent Dawn member is rewarded by becoming a Lich, a member of the Scourge, and then you fight him as a member of the Alliance here in Dragonblight. And then we can go back into Naxxramas and kill Kel'Thuzad once again, and hopefully for good this time, where we see him in the Shadowlands expansion, where he's like dead and in Shadowlands, and I don't entirely know, but it's part of that expansion. And then the one other story change between vanilla and Lich King is related to a boss called the Four Horsemen, where you fight 4 different horsemen, and they are basically like really cool characters. But in vanilla, the leader of the 4 horsemen and the coolest one is Alexandros Morgraine, who is a really, really cool character, but he is no longer the leader of the horsemen in the Lich King Naxxramas because of some story going on in Lich King, and it is now Baron Rivendare, who is one of the 4 horsemen, who is the final boss of Stratholme, which I haven't really talked about too much on this channel. But Baron Rivendare is cool, but Alexandros Morgraine is cooler, but it's kind of cool to see like the story progress a little bit, where we have Naxxramas right here, which looks kind of small from the outside, but that's kind of just like one of the like things with World of Warcraft and like game worlds, where when we go inside, it is much bigger. And Naxxramas is a really interesting area, and we can explore all of it and learn a lot about what there is here, where I just need to load in. And then we can run into here, where I think there is going to be a little bit of dialogue going on. I thought Kel'Thuzad would speak to us as we came into here. But we also have Mr. Bigglesworth right here, who is Kel'Thuzad's cat. And normally I don't like killing critters, but I'll go ahead and kill this critter because there is a cool interaction that we can experience. So we just angered Kel'Thuzad there, which is funny. But if you look at the map here, Naxxramas is split into 4 different wings, and then in the upper level is like a 5th wing. So I'm just going to go ahead and run down each wing individually, and then maybe run back to the start and go down at the other ones, where we can start here, where we have the Arachnid Quarter. So let's go ahead and kill a bunch of spiders, which sounds good to me, and I just got pulled this way, which is uncomfortable. But we just need to explore this entire necropolis, which basically the entire area looks pretty much like this, where it is a massive floating undead fortress filled with undead, and it's like this weird stone, and there's like the plague bubbles and whatnot all around here. And we have our first boss right here, Nubricon.
They all smell so delicious. There is no way out.
Who we can just kill. And we can get some loot there, and that is the first boss, where a lot of the bosses in here aren't particularly lore important or like super cool, like specifically because of like a really big thing, but each of the different bosses has like a little bit of stuff going on. Not really in the Arachnid Quarter, I guess, but we can go ahead and just explore all of them, and I'll go ahead and kind of point out any part of the boss that I particularly like and how like they play an important part in maybe World of Warcraft's culture and also in just like the lore and story of World of Warcraft, where Anubakan I don't think is really an important boss, where a lot of people will know Anubarak, who is the leader of the undead and Nerubians who are controlled by Arthas, but Anubakan is kind of just like a lieutenant of that boss. We have Grand Widow Fairlina, who is kind of just like a cultist boss who we can one-shot. And it's kind of just like a cool boss. Like, you know, it's always nice to fight some of the cultists because like they betrayed humanity and like the different races of Tyria to serve the Lich King in an attempt to gain more power. Where Naxxramas is kind of a confusing maze where there are a lot of turns and like a lot of different places you can go, and I'm not entirely sure what like the best way to do Naxxramas is, where I haven't really like rated this as current content, and I've only ever run through here just like for fun to kill the different bosses. But there's a Vigilant Shade there, but we can see the outer ring here, which if I go back to the view of the lower necropolis, we can see it goes all around these areas where we have the different like wings here, and I think it's best if we just like start from the center and go through each one. But we have the final boss of the first wing here, where each wing has 3 different bosses, and then the final area has 2 bosses. But we have Onyxia, who is just a classic spider boss, and we can see Onyxia's nest right here, which is a really cool area. But this boss is kind of cool because I have some fond memories of her Hearthstone card, because I used to play Hearthstone. I haven't played it in years, but I bought the first like pack for Hearthstone, or was it the second pack, which was Naxxramas. It was the first or second, but Onyxia is like a cool card you can get, and I remember using that Hearthstone card a lot. I just noticed this Naxxramas portal. I'm not sure how long this has been here, but I might go ahead and just use this. This must have always been here, but I've just like forgotten about it. And that sends us back to the start, which is so nice. I thought I'd have to run all the way back here. But let's go ahead and now do the construct quarter. So we just dealt with like a ton of bosses and some cultists and whatnot, but now we can fight some constructs. So we are going to have like a ton, or there's actually 4 bosses in this wing instead of 3. Oops. But we just have like a ton of constructs, like these abominations here, which are basically like big undead minions that are stitched together from like a ton of different corpses to create the monstrosity that they are. But the first boss of this wing, I believe, is like the first boss that people do, and it's like a relatively easy boss fight, but has like a couple of mechanics that a lot of people really struggle with when they are new to World of Warcraft. So I think like a ton of groups like wipe on this boss, but it's also like the easiest boss, and it is a very popular boss known as Patchwork, who we can go ahead and just run this way and fight. Where if you heard that screaming earlier, I'll explain that in just a moment. But Patchwork right here, he wanders back and forth, and we can go ahead and fight him. Maybe I can pull Zyber.
Patchwork his avatar of war.
And then we can kill him.
What happened to Patch?
And basically just a simple abomination boss. And we can now run through here where we have these stitched giants. So kind of similar to the like abominations we saw earlier, but we also have Grobulus, who is a really cool looking boss who we can fight right here. And not too much going on right there, but we got a very cool looking shield, I believe. Oh, I think I needed to clear all the trash from earlier, so I might just have to kill all these creatures really quickly. But to look at this shield, I'll go ahead and preview it. It just looks super cool. Where in the original vanilla World of Warcraft there was like some different items, and I think there's like some repeat items in the Lich King, but warriors used to be able to get what looks like Death Knight armor. So warriors could kind of become Death Knights visually in the original like vanilla Naxxramas, which is really cool. But now of course we have Death Knights in Lich King, which I'm actually playing as a Death Knight right now, which is cool. Okay, I think I need to go back and fight this sledge, which is annoying. Note to self, kill all of the creatures as you are running through here, because these bio sledge are super slow moving. I think this is the last one. There we go, out of combat. But now that I've dealt with all that, we can go ahead and run along this way, which is really cool because we have this pipe here that is about to lead us into the sewer grate, which is just a really interesting and cool vibe, where of course we are in like a massive like undead fortress. So there's like some infrastructure stuff going on right here, and we can see out over Patchwork's area right here. And then we have Gluth, which is another construct that looks like a massive core hound basically, who we can fight and then loot and get some cool items, and then continue out this way where we have one more boss in this quarter, which I think this boss might be one of the most horrifying bosses in all of World of Warcraft, if not the most. And then potentially it's up there in like all of gaming. I'm sure there's like a lot more that's a lot more horrifying than this, but we have Stalag here and we have Fugan here. And we have Thaddeus here, which basically I could read like a lore article to give like a very specific answer, but based off my understanding and to give a quick summary, Thaddeus is a construct that is constructed together by like tens of thousands of like different innocent like souls. So like a lot of the constructs around here might be like made from like human fighters and whatnot. Thaddeus is like specifically like women and like children, like that kind of vibe, where they are like stitched together to create this massive monstrosity right here. And the screaming that we heard earlier and that we could hear throughout Naxxramas as we explored it comes from the screams of those women and children that are stitched together right here into this monstrosity. And then when we kill Thaddeus, the screaming stops, which is nice. But that's just like a very, very horrifying thought, and this is a really, really messed up boss who we can go ahead and bring some peace to those people, where we have a mechanic here that I'm never entirely sure what we're supposed to do, if I'm being honest. Let's go ahead, kill Stalag, and then let's go ahead and come over here and fight Fugan, where there is some parkour going on in this area, I think, which is cool. And we just kill both of them. So Tesla coils overload, and now I think we can kill Thaddeus for just a moment maybe, and we just need to get over here and jump there. So some parkour going on, and then we can fight Thaddeus. And Thaddeus says thank you, so we can go ahead and loot him. And then we can run back this way. But I also like how there's like some jumping integrated into this boss fight, which is cool. But let's go ahead and take the Naxxramas portal back to the center, and let's go to the Plague Quarter, which is the third quarter here in Naxxramas, where we could do any of the four in whatever order we want. But the Plague Quarter is really interesting because it's kind of just related to like basic undead stuff and some necromancy. So let's go ahead and run through this way, where the first two bosses of this place is called Noth, the Plaguebringer, and Hygen, the Unclean, who are two interesting bosses because I think it's Noth who plays a part in the Lich King Death Knight starting experience, which is something that I'll highlight on my channel in the future, which is cool. And then Hygen is mentioned in that experience as well, because you can ask Noth about that, or it's the other way around. I'm pretty sure you can talk to Noth, but we can run into here, and this is an interesting boss fight where he like teleports up, and then you have to like fight some skeletons, and then he teleports back down. Or we can one-shot him, which is cool. And I am running out of inventory space, so I might just start deleting a few things and I have to type it. But let's continue this way, where there are just some plagued creatures, you know, some bats and some grubs around here, and then some plagued beasts that are lumbering about. where this area kind of feels like Eastern Plaguelands, which is the zone that Naxxramas was located in, where it was located above Stratholme. And we can see kind of some similar assets around here with like all these different mushrooms and like different plants that are all plagued, which is kind of a sad storyline, of course, because we have to deal with like the plague, and it like destroys all of Lordaeron and everything related to the events of Warcraft 3. But we have Hygen the Unclean here, which I'll just mention briefly. There is like a very popular mechanic that a lot of people like to talk about called the safety dance, which basically is still an idea relevant in modern day World of Warcraft, where I think there was like something kind of added in one of the more recent raids in Dragonflight that's like similar to this mechanic, and it's still called the safety dance. But not entirely sure how the mechanic works, but I think like you got poison that comes up here and you have to like avoid that, and then you have to like stand in certain areas to avoid poisoning other people. So it's a lot of like organization. Or we can just kill Hygen right there, and we got 2 demises, which is this 2-handed mace right there. We got some ice stalks in this area, which is kind of creepy, with like these different like cauldrons or whatever of the plague. And then we can run along this area where we are in the outer ring again, but we are kind of above it, where you can't really access this area from anywhere down there, so you have to come through the entrance. But we have Lotheb here, who is just like a very large plague monstrosity, and there's not too much more going on than that. It's just a big plague monster that we have to kill, and you can just like 3, 5, 6 shot it right there or whatever. I think Kothizat's going to speak to us, potentially. And let's go ahead, take the Naxxramas portal back to the start where I just got the notification that we killed Noth. That's cool. And let's go ahead and explore the last quarter, which is the military quarter, and maybe my favorite one of the 3, just because I really enjoy Death Knights, where this is like the Death Knight wing, where there are a ton of soldiers in here that we can fight, where we see a lot of Death Knights, Death Knight captains, and some Necro Knights and whatnot. So let's go ahead and just run through here.
The first kill goes to me. Anyone cares for wager?
Where we have this lady here, which I never learned the pronunciation of this name, and I know the community pronunciation of it, and I'm not going to say that because I want to stay monetized on this YouTube channel. But honestly, kind of just like a really cool boss that you fight in here. And this area was updated a little bit with Lich King, because we had like new assets or like new skills and whatnot, where in the original vanilla Death Knights weren't a fully fleshed out idea, but we can see that there are just a ton of them in this wing that we can fight. And then let's go ahead and go down here, where there are some Death Charger steeds and some Death Knight Cavalier on horses here that we can go ahead and defeat. And then we can see this boss right here, who's another boss from the Death Knight starting experience, Instructor Rejuvius, where we have these 2 obedience crystals here. And basically how this fight works is you need 2 players, which I think tends to be DPS players and not tanks, have to use the Death Knight understudies in order to attack Rejuvius, or Rejuvius just instantly kills people. So you have to like use these Death Knights in order to tank this boss, otherwise you take like a ton of damage or whatever. And it's kind of a gimmicky mechanic, so like a lot of groups wipe on this, which is rough and like hardcore. If you like wipe on this, your entire raid is dead forever. But we can just kill Rejuvius there, and then his 2 understudies came running, so we can just deal with him as well. We have some unholy weapons in here that are kind of just cool magical weapons. It's always fun to fight like floating weapons, like every now and then, you know, too much, like used too much, seen too much, like it's not really cool, but every now and then it's a fun vibe, and I think it hits the vibe well there. But over here we have Gothic the Harvester, which is yet another boss from the Lich King version of the raid, I believe. And I forget how to start this fight actually, where he's up there, and then, oh, do we go into here and then it starts? Let's see. I think that might be the case. Or maybe it's not. Oh, there's a frozen rune over here. It has been such a long time since I've run through Naxxramas, but it's like so fun to just go on a bit of a nostalgia trip and to explore this area. Where was this do? Absorbs 87 fire damage, lasts 1 hour, and is a crafting reagent. It can be sold for 2 gold. Interesting. Let's try to get close to him over here. Just attack him.
The reason you have disregarded powers beyond your understanding. You have fought hard to invade the realm of the Harvester. Now, there is only one way out. To walk the lonely path of the damned.
He's monologuing, and we can fight a bunch of Death Knights, and I think we might just have to continue doing this for a bit, where we can kill the Death Knights over here, and then they become spirits over here. And I think we just have to do this for a certain duration of time, where it looks like that duration of time is 4 minutes and 30 seconds. So I'll just be here for a moment.
I have waited long enough. Now you face the Harvester of Souls.
And Gothic just came down here, and we can one-shot him. And just kind of like a cool vibe of a boss, where
We've got company.
we can now go ahead and continue this way.
Cease this foolish venture at once. Turn away while you still can.
Come, Zeliek. Do not drive them out. Not before we've had our fun.
Enough battling. Let them come. We shall grind their bones to dust.
I do hope they stay alive long enough for me to introduce myself.
Perhaps they will come to their senses and run away as fast as they can. I've heard about enough of your sniveling. Shut your fly trap before I shut it for you.
Conserve your anger. Harness your rage. You will all have outlets for your frustration soon enough.
Where we have the 4 horsemen, who we can see right there, and this is just like a really cool boss fight, where we have some cool characters here, where I think we have like a dwarf and like 2 elves and a human, or 2 humans and an elf, and just really cool bosses. And individually, none of them have too much story going on other than like Baron Rivendare, which I talked about. But let's go ahead, let's fight them, and we kill all 4 of them. And we can go ahead and loot this chest and listen to Kel'Thuzad. Where we can take the portal back to the center, and we can now go up to the upper level, because we have officially completed the 4 different quarters around Naxxramas, and we now have 2 bosses left to fight. I think, is it up here, or is it right here? Over Naxxramas. And we are now in Saffron's Lair, because we are now in the upper halls of Naxxramas, and we have this really cool animation right here that I'll just watch. And we have this massive undead dragon, which I believe used to be a blue dragon that we can fight and go ahead and kill. And this is like Kel'Thuzad's like favorite minion or whatever. So let's go ahead, slay her, loot her, and let's run this way, which I just looked away at the wrong second. We can see that the door shattered. And he says, "Come, heroes, by the will of the Lich King, you shall be destroyed." And this is Kel'Thuzad, the final boss of Naxxramas, and we heard the Lich King there talking to him. So let's go ahead and run towards him. And I think here we have another similar mechanic like we just did with Gothic, where we just have to kill a bunch of minions for like a certain amount of time, I believe, and then we can go ahead and fight Kel'Thuzad, or do we just have to kill everything? Where I believe the wait time here is 5 minutes, so we just have a ton of undead to slay. Where I really like the name of the skeletons because they're called Soldier of the Frozen Wastes, and that's just like a really cool name. Especially since I believe the achievement for completing like all of the different achievements in this raid is like Champion of the Frozen Wastes, or that's for all the dungeons and raids on the heroic level. Where we see Kel'Thuzad running towards us now, and we can go ahead and fight him. And we can go ahead and loot him. Hello, Soul Weaver. And we got Anarchy, Cloak of the Dying, and Wand of the Archlich. I'll go ahead and just delete this one right here. And we can take a look at Anarchy, a very cool looking dagger, and this wand here, which is also very cool looking. And then this cape, which is alright. But that is Kel'Thuzad, and that is Naxxramas. Where I think in the vanilla version of this room, we can actually see like different vanilla zones, like Moonglade and like Duratars, like something like that, where it's basically kind of like the idea that the undead are attacking different places around Azeroth on behalf of Kel'Thuzad and the Lich King. But we have Kel'Thuzad's throne right here, which is also a really, really cool detail. But with Kel'Thuzad dead, that is basically everything that I wanted to do, so let's go ahead and swap back to my Season of Discovery character as we finish up this episode. Where I am still dead and I am a ghost, so I'm going to go ahead and try to resurrect myself and then Hearthstone back to Orgrimmar. And if I die again, I'll just probably talk to the spirit healer because I don't want to run all the way back here and potentially just die again. So we're on this dock. Is there anything on this dock? Let's go ahead. Hearthstone. Anything? Oh, that one's kind of close to us. Hands off the keyboard so I don't accidentally run. And we got out. So really cool. I'm still kind of embarrassed that I didn't realize that variant is there, but we still got like a cool overview of that area, and we also got a cool look at Onyxia and Naxxramas, who are the first and last raids of vanilla World of Warcraft. And I've highlighted some other raids on my channel thus far, and I'm going to continue to do that in the future, mostly in streams. I'm not sure how many more I'm going to do in this Let's Play series, because as we return next episode, we will be in Phase 4, and we will be in the final stretch to level 60, where we will probably be finishing up this Let's Play series. But I do hope you all enjoyed watching this episode, and I hope you all are taking good care of yourselves. Remember, as always, to drink some water, check your posture, and subscribe. And I'll see you next time in the world of Azeroth. Goodbye.